Was kept incredibly private, very small. There were lots of NDAs signed. Well, we believe it's the first time, all of these four band members have all been in the same room together. You can only imagine the conversations that were had at the wake. I heard that Robbie Williams was invited, but he'd been working in LA, so he sent flowers.
I've actually loved him on the press too. I found him so funny and just down to earth. If anyone knows that trip wipes 3 years off your life. I mean, he's obviously not schlumming it in the back of economy like me in the toilets. Can I just be devil's advocate here? I actually didn't love it. His team has offered me $12 million to sign an NDA and basically stay silent against any bad press against him. They don't want her to say anything that he's done badly. Day by day, captured TikTok. Everyone is invested in this. Everyone is saying, oh my God, what is happening right now?
Everyone needs a hunky Australian as a rebound.
I mean, not me. Welcome to Virgin Radio's Showbiz Wrap. I'm Maddie, Hale, and every week, The Sun on Sundays, Hannah Hope and I will be breaking down the biggest entertainment stories you need to know. Firstly, this week, Liam Payne was finally laid to rest with a funeral service attended by his former One Direction bandmates, seen together for the first time in 9 years. Hannah, the funeral took place over a month after Liam died in Argentina. What can you tell us about this very private event?
So it was widely speculated and thought that it would take place in Wolverhampton, where Liam grew up and where much of his family reside. But actually, it took place in Amersham, Buckinghamshire, which is where Liam had a home, Cheryl, his ex-partner, had a home with their son, Bear. And I think it was largely organised by sort of her and her management, people close to her. And I guess that's so Bear can sort of go and see his dad and he could be involved. As you say, it was kept incredibly private, very small, at a small church there. There were lots of NDAs signed, but we did see it was, a high-profile celebrity event. We had all of Liam's One Direction bandmates there: Harry Styles, Zayn Malik, Louis Tomlinson, Niall Horan. Their first reunion in 9 years.
Yeah.
But what tragic circumstances. Cheryl was there with all of her Girls Aloud bandmates, Kimberly Walsh and Nicola Roberts, and Simon Cowell was there, and there were some really emotive pictures of him hugging Liam's dad outside the church. And then you had a few other sort of celebrity folk. James Corden was there. It looked like he was very much supportive of Harry Styles.
Yeah.
And then also you had the TV presenter Adrian Chiles. There was an unlikely friendship that he and Liam had about both supporting the same football club. But yeah, it was really tragic sort of circumstances to see these high-profile celebrities. But it was kind of beautiful because it was like a crisp, clear, sunny winter's day. And yeah, it just, the pictures were just very sort of stunning.
And the pictures of the funeral, it did actually look like quite a small private event. But as you said, there were actually quite a few celebrities that were spotted. That everyone has seen photos of all these celebrities actually at the event, despite it being quite small. But when you say it was the reunion for the remaining One Direction band members, is this the first time they've actually seen each other all together, or the first time the public has seen them together?
Well, we believe it's the first time, all of these four band members have all been in the same room together. Obviously, you've got to remember, Zayn walked out of the band before the other boys decided to kind of take the hiatus. And it was just, you can only imagine the conversations that were had at the wake afterwards, which was took place in Liam's back garden in a marquee at his home. So, yeah, you can only imagine the conversations they had, but such tragic circumstances. Liam's girlfriend, Kate Cassidy, also flew in from America. And she was the unlikely kind of partner of the day with Liz Hurley's son Damien, which was just an interesting kind of link to have seen.
I know, because when I saw those photos, I was confused as to how they were friends, because it is an unlikely pair, but obviously she wanted to take someone to support her.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a very difficult day for her. I mean, I'm sure that there's probably lots of kind of uncomfortable, feelings maybe between some of Liam's friends who he was hanging around with in, his last years compared to his older friends and family. And there was also a lot of people who maybe weren't at the funeral. I think that Lou Teasdale, you've got to remember, who was the One Direction's hairstylist, she didn't appear to be there. Neither did Lottie Tomlinson. who is Louis Tomlinson's little sister. So you had maybe kind of some people you used to see hanging around as part of a wider group who actually didn't show up. I heard that Robbie Williams was invited, but he'd been working in LA, so he sent flowers. So you can imagine that a lot of people, maybe even though they weren't able to show up, sent their condolences and their respects. I also believe that Bear, Liam's 7-year-old son, had a role to play in the funeral as well, even though we didn't see him pictured. So yeah, very sad day, but it was nice to sort of see all the boys kind of turning up to support him.
And we know that both Cheryl and Liam had kept Bear's life very, very private, and the funeral was the exact same situation. Snuck in, no one saw him, no one's taken photos of him. But with the One Direction boys, is there any intel on what the status is of their friendship? Do they...
I mean, it looks like they are in touch. I definitely feel like Zayn, he's sort of more separate because he's been living in America sort of away from them all for a while. But we know that Harry and Niall have seen each other, and it looks like Niall might even be the peacemaker between a lot of them. I think that he and Louis still have a friendship. They share some A&R and management people. But, you know, you'd like to think that maybe the four of them all got together at the funeral and maybe had a discussion. I don't know, unfortunately.
And put everything aside. Not that they're even speaking much, but Cheryl Cole, or Cheryl Tweedy, she walked behind the coffin when they brought Liam out after the funeral. What's her relationship like with Liam's family?
I think, you know, she's obviously been through an incredibly tough time, an unimaginable loss for her, and to have to explain to their son Bear that, you know, Liam, his dad, has died is hugely difficult. But my understanding is that she, you know, has a good relationship with Liam's parents and his sisters, and I'm sure that she will make sure that they are a part of Bear's life growing up, because they will see Liam in Bear, I'm sure.
And so Cheryl and Bear live in the area in one of the home counties where the funeral took place.
Yeah, that's where they are based. Cheryl's always been closer to London, even though she comes from Newcastle. She's always had a base there, which has provided, you know, some stability for Bear. And I think that Liam also had a home nearby, even though I know he was kind of living partly in America and travelling a lot. But he did have a home nearby as well.
So all in all, it was a beautiful day to lay him to rest. And...
Yes, we know that there was, performance-wise, there was a gospel choir and a harpist. So it sounds like a beautiful, tasteful funeral. And, yeah, a low-key wake held at Liam's home afterwards.
And everyone attended that?
I'm sure most people who've been at the funeral attended the wake as well.
Well, we're going to move on to the Gladiator press tour. You and I have spoken about how the Gladiator Wicked phenomenon is the new Barbie Oppenheimer of 2023. Paul Mescal this week. This hilarious clip that I'm going to show you. He really put his foot in it when it came to the royal family. I want to show you guys this clip of him being asked about meeting King Charles.
What was it like meeting the king? Had you met him before?
Never met the king. I mean,
how wild is that?
How wild is it? I mean, it's definitely not something that I thought was in the bingo cards. I'm like Irish, so it's not kind of on the list of priorities.
So obviously, I don't think many Americans would realise that he's not actually in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I know. And I think also you've got to remember as well, like there's kind of this like old rivalry between sort of Ireland and England, and a lot of Irish people, you know, don't like the royal family. So yeah, that does, it was a really awkward interview, but funny all the same. And I think it's good to see that Paul Mescal is being, you know, very authentic.
I've actually loved him on the press too. I found him so funny and just down to earth, but I agree. It was a really funny actually watching the Gladiator premiere when King Charles went in London in Leicester Square, and all of them meeting. They're all lined up. Paul, Denzel, all of them lined up meeting King Charles, and it just looked like this very awkward meet and greet. And he's like, "Hello," and he goes to Denzel like, "Who do you play? Are you a bad character?" And Denzel was like, "No, I'm good," which Spoiler alert, he absolutely is not.
No, oh right, that's interesting. No, I mean, I just think, those meet and greets, they are awkward, but I do think it's good that people are honest about them because it is, it's quite an old-fashioned notion, isn't it? Like lining up to meet a member of the royal family who, to some people, is going to be really exciting, but to some people who, who are from different countries, it's kind of not really anything. It's like they're meeting any person off the street. But there's been a couple of things. There was a very funny exchange between Pedro Pascal and Denzel Washington on the red carpet where they had a little bit of banter, which was quite funny. And Denzel was kind of taking the mick out of Pedro, saying that, they're not friends outside of the show. But I think they were just joking. And then also Paul Mescal met one of his lookalikes on Zoe Ball's Radio 2 breakfast show. And the lookalike was like really sweet. And
I love those lookalike competitions.
I know, yeah.
And there was a Harry Styles one in London the other day.
There was a Harry Styles one. And there was one in New York, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, and it's just so funny because it's like, guys,
I think if
there is no comparison. I'm sorry to say it, there's no comparison, but I want to show you this funny clip that we've got of Paul Mescal meeting his super fan and actually doing a quiz about who knows Paul the best.
What was Paul's first movie?
This one, he did a short film named Drifting, and then The Lost Daughter came out.
So 3 points again for her. So great.
But you have the advantage here.
I don't know if that's true anymore, to be totally honest.
Isn't that so funny? He gets it wrong.
So sweet. And this is what I mean. He's so authentic. It's like, it's just made me like a Paul Mescal super fan. There's no airs and graces. It's brilliant.
What would you do if you rocked up to an interview with a publication? They're like, hey, we've got your biggest fan. I'd be like, oh, who is this? And I mean, obviously it was just a sweet lady, but imagine someone actually knowing more about your life than you.
Yeah, it is kind of mad, really. But the other thing about these press tours that, you and I will know is that these actors have to kind of jet from country to country, sit down and do dozens of interviews. And, we've said before, it is irritating when they're rude and obnoxious and offhand.
Yeah.
But he looks a bit flummoxed and just a bit knackered, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He probably just needs a bit of a nap.
He's been doing this goddamn dance for a few weeks now. He's been travelling the globe. He was in Sydney and then he was in London or something the next day. If anyone knows that trip, and I know that trip, living in London and being from Sydney, is that takes, not only does it take 24 hours, but it wipes 3 years off your life.
Oh, yeah.
And I will not be going to a press tour from one to another. I will be taking 3 days off work to recover from that trip. I mean, he's obviously not schlumming it in the back of economy like me in the toilets, practically.
No, jet lag is an absolute killer. I completely agree. But no, how funny. But I actually can't wait to see that film because apparently it's got really good reviews. Oh, do you think he's going to win an Oscar for it?
Can I just be devil's advocate here? I actually didn't love it.
Well,
I know, breaking news.
Your fellow Antipodean Russell Crowe killed it in the original one, didn't he?
Exactly.
So he doesn't live up to Russell Crowe's standards.
First of all, I'm someone that I don't think you need to recreate everything. It's just not necessary. I saw an article yesterday saying that they were going to reboot Friday Night Lights. There is no point in doing that. That was one of the best shows to ever exist. We don't need to try again. But Gladiator is not that because it's obviously a sequel. So it's good. So it is good and it's set obviously years later. I actually gave it a 5 out of 10, which is not a strong. And also, just keep in mind that I have 0 credentials to be rating films. I don't even know what a good actor is. But he's good. But there's a lot of plot lines missing. I felt quite confused by a few scenes. I'm not going to give anything away, obviously, to the fellow viewers. But it is good and it's, gory as you would expect from a Gladiator film. And it's filmed really well and it has a bit of humour. And just silliness to it, which is cool. And it's just like a funnier take on kind of the Roman Empire.
Really? I didn't expect it to be funny. That's so interesting.
Just in scenes, it's like a lot of the characters look a bit more silly and a bit more goofy. And I liked that. And I really liked the cast. I'm a huge Joseph Quinn fan because he plays one of the emperors, but he's without a doubt, one of the best actors of Stranger Things, and he's only in one season.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. The thing I will say is that, look, I love Netflix. I love cozy season and just snuggling up and watching kind of movies at home. But I also think it's really important that we support cinemas because
Agreed.
they're all going to kind of just shut down if we don't get out
I
and
love
go to cinema.
going. I love going to them.
And wouldn't you say that something like that, like Gladiator,
Yeah.
that has such big kind of cinematography
Yeah.
and these really kind of, you know, rocking scenes, you kind of want to go to the cinema
I
and
agree.
watch
There's
it, right?
movies that you need to see in the cinema,
Yeah.
and that was one of them. And I don't regret it. I just think I went there thinking this is going to be really good, and it was a good film. It actually was, but there were parts that I just thought, okay, this needs a little bit more context.
Got it.
Or various, I don't know. I don't want to give too much away, but it was good. It just wasn't as good as I'd hoped. But you know, it's not. I don't think it's been particularly. I think it's been quite controversial, criticised. Some people love it. Some people didn't like it. But I don't know who would be up for an Oscar this year.
Oh, right, out of everyone,
Out of
you mean?
out of all the Gladiator, you know, people, I don't know what would get.
Maybe it win an Oscar for one of the kind of, you know, film roles rather than
Yeah.
the acting.
Yeah.
Not that they're bad actors, they're obviously
They're
amazing
all
actors,
great.
aren't they? So-
Denzel was really good to see. It was really nice to see him in a role like that because I felt like I hadn't watched him in anything as of late. I'm a huge fan of him. Man on Fire is one of my favourite films.
So I was at the premiere for Flight years ago, and Denzel, like, often on the red carpet, they don't always have to stop for everyone, but Denzel,
Yeah.
you know, it was his movie. He was like the main actor in it. But he came and stopped and chatted to all the journalists.
I love
and he
that.
let us all ask a question. He said, guys, you look really cold. And then there was some tickets left
am.
over afterwards, and he made sure we all got a ticket to go and see the movie.
Okay, so he's a stand-up guy.
I just love him because he's such an amazing Hollywood actor. And when
Yeah.
they're genuine and sweet to the little people, it counts.
It makes a difference, and also, one bad story travels a mile. We know that from our first episode of this show. When people with bad reputations, we hear about it,
Absolutely.
especially in TV. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a few out there. People probably talking about me, being like, that girl.
No. You'll love it.
We're going to move on to the United States now. Well, we already were in the United States, a bit of a hybrid before, but this is an interesting story that I've been, you know, not covering, but just watching from the sidelines. Brianna Chickenfry LaPaglia, I think that's how you say her last name, and Zach Bryan. Now, the reason why she's chicken fry is because she once compared her leg to a chicken fry or something.
Love that.
Brianna is a TikToker. She hosts a podcast with the Barstool's founder, Dave Poulton, I think his name is, and another guy called Josh Richards. Anyway, she starts dating Zach Bryan last year, who's a huge country singer. I love him. Something in the Orange, Pink Skies. Anyway, there's quite a few songs. Anyway, he's very, very popular in the US and in the country scene. They date for a year and then they break up a month ago. And then it starts getting heated because basically he puts out an Instagram message saying, hey, everyone, Brianna and I have broken up. Please respect our privacy. She jumps online and says, like, I feel completely blindsided. I didn't know he was going public with this. It creates this huge media storm where everyone's obviously prying in, being like, what? This obviously ended badly. She then comes out and says, his team has offered me $12 million to sign an NDA and basically stay silent against any bad press against him. They don't want her to say anything he's done badly. She said, nah, I'm not doing that. And she's blasted him on her podcast, along with her co-host. They've gone to town. They called him the smallest man. They kind of wrote a song. It's kind of a play on the smallest man that ever lived by Taylor Swift from her new album, or newish. And it's just every day there's a new update. She's alleged that he emotionally abused her. She says the reason why he's kept quiet about this, because he hasn't said anything, is because if he says I didn't really do anything wrong, she's then, well, I'm going to release the videos of you allegedly throwing stuff at me.
Oh my
so
goodness.
it's like day by day, captured TikTok. Everyone is invested in this. Everyone is saying, oh my God, what is happening right now? Especially because Dave, the owner of Barstool, that TikTok and that business, it's huge. It's like 14 million followers or something. He is going to town on him.
So he's supporting his
He's
colleague,
supporting
isn't
his
he?
girl,
Yeah.
and they're really good friends. Anyway, this week it escalated again because she basically posted a photo of her on Instagram or TikTok, whatever it was, watching the sunrise in New York City, kind of leaning on this Australian guy. And people started messaging her, being like, "Oh, you're already on the dating scene. You're already dating on the dating scene." So I want to show this clip of her response to all those people weighing in.
You guys think I'm ever gonna have a boyfriend again? I am in intensive therapy. I said in my video before that, I'm hanging out with a guy, he's going back to Australia. I'm never gonna see him again. Am I not allowed to live a little? Am I not allowed to smooch a little?
I love that. Everyone needs a hunky Australian as a rebound, by the way, I've got to say.
I mean, not me. Been through that.
Okay, fair enough.
But isn't that just so funny? She's just so honest online. I mean, obviously this has been quite detrimental to Zach. I don't know monetary wise or like how it's affected his music career. He didn't attend the Country Music Awards that happened the other day.
Wow.
He didn't go to them.
Okay.
And everyone in the industry goes to them. Carrie Underwood even like surprised people with a performance.
Yeah, they're huge. You know, for that genre of music, that genre of music is massive in America, and for him to snub that event or not show his face is massive. I mean, a couple of things jump out at me here, just looking at this. How many celebrities that we know, we've heard of, must have signed NDAs and had payoffs? I mean, you hear rumours of it, but to have someone talking on the record about it is really quite shocking.
And the reason why she came out with all this is because she knows that his ex-girlfriends have signed various NDAs. He was also married for a year in 2020 to a woman named Rose. And I think Rose may have signed an NDA, so she hasn't said anything. So Brianna knows that they've signed an NDA, and she's like, "No, I'm not going down this road. I'm not taking money from you. I'm not going to buy a house for $12 million and think this house was bought by my ex-boyfriend, so I remain silent." She's then had a conversation with his ex-wife. They've never met, and they've now reached out to each other. They've had she said they had like a 2-hour phone convo.
Which happens a lot, I think, when people have been in abusive relationships. You kind of want to go and compare notes with the exes.
Exactly.
To kind of, you know, have that validation.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think is really interesting here is that you've got two different types of celebrities. You've got the traditional celebrity, the country singer, you know, who smiles, doesn't say very much, will put a kind of old-fashioned statement up and then pay people off. Then you've got Brianna, who is a TikToker who lives incredibly authentically, says everything on TikTok, says everything on her podcast, and she cannot be controlled. And, you know, this is a new breed of celebrity that some people are still getting their heads around, but how refreshing is it that they absolutely will not be silenced and they will say it how it is? I think it's really good.
I love it, and I love the camaraderie with her and her podcast hosts, because basically they're a bit older than her. She's 25, and I think Dave is in his 40s. But what happened this week, as well as that video of the intensive therapy, the very honest declaration, is that she went to the UFC. She'd never been to the UFC before, and she went to watch the fight. And one of the guys on stage, he might be a boxer, I'm not quite sure, but he basically said, "Oh, shout out next month, Zach Bryan's playing here," and it was all very weird and staged. And then he was on a podcast, and the podcast host said, "Oh, why'd you shout out Zach Bryan? That was kind of odd. It was like you were giving him, you know, a platform for his concert next month." And he goes, "Oh, I don't even know who he is. I just was told by my management that Zach Bryan's team wanted me to shout out, kept begging me to shout him out. And so I did." And so obviously Dave, he's backing up his podcast co-host, Brianna, gets on TikTok and goes, "How pathetic does this man have to be that he knows his ex-girlfriend is in the audience and gets the guy on stage to talk about Zach in front of her?"
Yeah, that is like high level pettiness right there. I mean, that is, you know, really quite pathetic, and it just smacks of, again, more management control, you know, trying to control the situation.
Exactly. And it just goes to show, like, we always thought money was power, but sometimes it's not power.
Not anymore. It's changing. You know, again, like going back to, we were talking last week about all this P. Diddy case.
Exactly, I was about to say that.
It sounds like there's similarities. You know, people think that they are beyond kind of being brought to justice. And, you know, everyone should be worried about the changing ways.
That's right. A few things left for the big show. We've had this Mean Girls reunion between Lindsay Lohan and Lacey Chabert. Is that how you say her name?
I'm not sure, actually, but I'm a huge fan of Andy Cohen and Bravo and his show.
I love it.
Watch What Happens Live, and I've actually been watching their clips, and it's really nice because we know Lindsay's had a bit of a tough time with, you know, various different rehab since, but she seems totally like back on track. And this reunion was so sweet and very authentic, and they seem to have like a lot of friendship and respect for each other.
And she looks Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. The talk of the town is Lindsay Lohan is back. I mean, that's been the talk of the town for the last year or two because she's been doing these Netflix Christmas movies, which is my absolute guilty pleasure.
Same.
Her and Lacey both have different Netflix Christmas movies coming out.
Yeah.
Lacey's had the Hot Frosty about that snowman that comes to life.
Yeah.
And she's got this new one about an ex-boyfriend coming out, I think this week. Anyway, so they did this hilarious mashup of Mean Girls I want to show you right now of them pretending they're back in 2004.
And
having lunch with the plastics was like leaving the actual world and entering Girl World. And Girl World had a lot of rules.
You can't wear a tank top 2 days in a row, and you can only wear your hair in a ponytail once a week. So I guess you pick today. Oh, and we always vote before we ask someone to eat lunch with us. I mean, you wouldn't buy a skirt first without asking your friends if it looks good on you.
I wouldn't?
Right. Oh, and it's the same with guys. Like, you may think you like someone, but you could be wrong.
120 calories and 48 calories from fat. What percent is that? I'm only eating foods with less than 30 calories from fat.
It's 40%.
Honestly. But even though that was quite funny, this clip is the one that's gone more viral because Lindsay Lohan made this insane declaration on the show, which basically said she hasn't auditioned since The Parent Trap.
What's a popular role you didn't end up getting that nobody even knows you auditioned for?
I mean, the first movie I auditioned for was The Parent Trap, and I haven't auditioned since that.
So funny. Because you imagine being a celebrity and having not auditioned since you were 7 or something?
That's I mean, she must just get offered so much stuff. But as we saw from the acting clip there, she's very good at acting.
Yeah.
She's very authentic at just kind of like delivering those lines, like just memorising them. Like, she is talented, isn't she? There's no two ways about it.
And there's more to her than just talent. Everyone knows that people want to see her do well. People want to see a resurgence of Lindsay Lohan. She was an it girl. You know, she's from the era of, you know, Hilary Duff and all Amanda Bynes, all the main gals that we love, and we want to see them thrive. Just finishing, we're going to finish with this random clip that's been resurfacing online. It is so bizarre. It just goes to show that fart jokes are still hilarious. Here is a clip of Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise.
Death of a Salesman was like the last time.
Sorry, it's been a long 3 days.
Are you kidding?
That's so funny. And do you know what I love about that clip is that Tom Cruise is like really young and looks like kind of a low-key hipster, doesn't he? And he's like, you know, Dustin Hoffman is this big respected actor to him. And now, like, you know, Tom Cruise is like, you know, the superstar. So it's quite cute.
He's quite serious.
Yeah,
he would never stand for that now. But imagine just being, as we've spoken, imagine being, as Dustin said, 3 days into your press tour and you just fart on the couch in the middle of an interview. Imagine if Paul Mescal did that. Pedro Pascal would be like, what are you doing?
I know, it's really bad. But what's quite funny is Dustin blames like sushi or something, doesn't it? I think they might be in Japan or
like
somewhere.
Sushi. Like, what a weird thing to blame.
It's really random.
It's highly like a gassy food.
I know. I think Tom Cruise should get that hairstyle again, though. I think it
agree.
really works for him.
That's actually the peak of what he's been.
Yeah,
what he's looked
I agree.
Like. But we wouldn't be seeing that from Dustin. Actually, maybe we would.
Well,
it gives Meet the Fockers vibes.
What I want is Dustin to come out and like talk about that again now. I feel like this
maybe
deserves a resurgence.
We'll get him on the show and just play it to him. Like, what were you doing there? Yeah. What did you decide to that? Oh, well, that's all from us this week. Thank you again to Hannah Hope for joining me, and be sure to like and subscribe for the latest entertainment news here on Virgin Radio's YouTube channel.